So the aim is, was Athens really a true democracy? We said they allow their citizens to vote, but the way they define the word citizen is a tricky question. So we're going to take a look at today, kind of try to figure out whether or not we really should consider Athens a true democracy or not. And that's what we're after. So there's nothing to write from this slide here, but what I want to talk about first is we're gonna examine this question. This, was Athens really a true democracy? We're going to examine that question by looking at a couple of different documents and a couple of different sources. So the first thing I want to talk about today is I want to spend some time talking about what makes sources reliable or unreliable. Okay, and there's a number of different factors that can kind of come into play when we're trying to figure out whether or not we should believe someone when they say something. That's essentially what we're talking about, right? So we're going to go over what those factors are for starters. Okay, first slide. So I'll give you a second to copy this, and we'll go from there. So I'll give you a second. So the first thing we have to consider when we're trying to figure out how reliable a source is we need to consider who is the speaker, for a particular source. Do we have a reason to believe that this person knows what they're talking about and or telling the truth, right? So someone who's, I'm not going to go and ask, an English teacher about how black holes work and astrophysics, right? Because I don't have reason to believe that that particular person knows what they're talking about with regard to those things. If I want to know how black holes work, I'm going to go ask an astrophysicist. So education is part of it, right? If someone's a known liar, you don't want to ask them, for good information about a particular subject. So we need to think about, what do we know about the speaker? Okay. Do we have reason to believe this particular person based on them knowing what they're talking about? Okay. So that's the first kind of consideration when we're trying to figure out whether or not a source is reliable, is who is the speaker and should we believe them? Okay, next. I'll give you a second here. Okay, so some other factors when trying to figure out whether or not a source is a reliable source of information. So what is the purpose of a particular source, okay? Is it to provide information fair and kind of, objectively with no point of view? Or is it kind of argumentative, okay? Is it presenting an opinion? Is it editorializing, okay? I know they're kind of antiquated, but we used to have these things called newspapers, right? Well, newspapers, the idea behind a newspaper is the newspaper is supposed to just, report the facts, and that's it. And then, opinions should be, formulated based on those facts. It's not the job of the newspaper to give you opinion until you get to like page 6 or whatever, or the opinion editorial section. Then they're giving you their opinion, right? So you need to think about what the purpose of a particular document is, because a lot of times the information in a particular document exists to serve a purpose, okay? That's the general idea. So by understanding what the purpose of a document is, can tell us whether or not that document should or should not be considered a reliable source of information. Audience is another part of it, right? Who is the intended audience for a particular thing? If someone is making a speech if a politician is making a speech at, an NRA rally. NRA is the National Rifle Association, right? And and that politician is talking about how they believe in very strongly, they believe in the Second Amendment, and that everyone should be allowed to carry guns with very limited background checks, and so on and so forth. The job of a politician is to get votes, and they're at an NRA meeting. So I'm not really sure if that's something that they genuinely believe in, or if it's something that they might be just saying in order to get the votes of those people at that meeting, right? So the audience in that particular case impacts how we, how reliable we think that source of information is. If that person is making that speech in a different environment to a different group of people, it may seem more reliable than otherwise, right? Because the audience is different. So who the target audience is, lends to whether or not we should believe a particular source. Okay, you got some red on this one, so I'll give you a minute. All right, so while you finished writing down the notes, so what this is really all about is we have to figure out kind of how do we qualify a particular source, okay? Is there an agenda here? Meaning, is there an unspoken purpose for a speech or for this document, okay? Um, I tell my kids, like, be careful what you read on a website that ends in .com, okay? And be careful about how you take that information in, right? Because a .com is a company that is designed to generate profit. So a lot of times the information presented on those websites is designed to push you towards purchasing something from them or adopting a certain train of thought that will ultimately lead to them profiting. Okay. A good example of this is when I buy stuff on Amazon, I like to read the reviews, right? I like to read what people have to say about it. I read the good ones, I read the bad ones, etc. But I'm always like a little sketchy about those reviews that are like super over the top positive, because like I'm always thinking maybe Amazon is planting this review because they're trying to get me to buy this product, right? So when I read a review about a particular product and that review is posted on that product's website, I don't know whether or not to believe that review because there might be an agenda behind that review, right? Someone's reviewing a product and saying how great it is. That might be because they just really want to get you to buy it. That doesn't necessarily mean it's great, okay? So that particular review or that particular reviewer might be biased, meaning they're supporting something in an unfair way and not giving you kind of the straight kind of information that you're looking for. So we can qualify kind of points of view as objective and subjective, right? Objective meaning something is written without being influenced by personal feelings or opinions. Okay. My favorite baseball team is the New York Mets, but they're horrible. Okay. So when I'm talking about who the best teams in the league are in Major League Baseball, I'm going to talk about the Yankees and the Dodgers and places like that. That's me speaking objectively. I am not putting my own personal kind of feelings and opinions into that opinion, right? So subjective means that a particular document might be influenced by personal feelings or opinions. So I'm a New York Mets fan. If you ask me who the best teams in the league are, I might say, yeah, the Mets finished second to last in their division, but they underachieved and it was only a 60-game season. And I think that the Mets are a lot better than what they showed. So if you're asking me who the best team in the league is, I'm going to tell you the Mets, even though their record doesn't support that. Okay, that's a subjective opinion. That's me putting my personal feelings and opinions into the information that I'm giving you, so you can see the difference in those and kind of how it influences whether or not you should believe what I have to say or not. Okay, the opposite is true also, right? For example, if let's take the Mets, okay? The New York Mets, their biggest rival is the Philadelphia Phillies, and the Atlanta Braves. If I tell you that I'm a Mets fan and you ask me who is the best team in the league, and I tell you probably the Braves or the Phillies, I have reason to hate those teams, right? Because they're rivals of my team. So maybe that means that you really should believe what I'm saying, because it would have to certainly be true for me to kind of speak out against the team that I'm telling you that I like. You know what I mean? If I'm going the other way on that. So these are all things that we have to think about when we kind of take a look at a particular source and try to figure out whether or not it is believable or not.